I also extend my appreciation to his successor, His Excellency Dennis Francis, for successfully steering the Assembly through trying times. It was during the 78th session where the relevance of the Assembly's work repeatedly came to the fore through reaffirmations. The theme for this general debate, leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for present and future generations, aligns perfectly well with our shared aspiration for effective international cooperation. In this regard, the adoption of the Pact for the Future and its annexes on the 23rd of this month, 2024, is encouraging. Namibia is proud to have served alongside Germany as a co-facilitator of the Summit of the Future. I congratulate all delegates for their commitment that brought the pact to fruition, all of you. Namibia's interest in the Pact for Future is grounded in the understanding that multilateral institutions, including the Security Council of the United Nations, do not represent African needs and aspirations. The institution created in 1945 must better respond to today's challenges. At the core of the pact is this recognition and the urgency for profound global transformation. At the heart of our quest to rebuild trust in multilateralism is a legitimate demand to be recognized as equal partners. Partners who can be trusted. Partners in the fight against war, against poverty, against global injustices and inequalities. Mr. President, Namibia is particularly concerned about the impact of climate change. Changes in ocean temperature have affected our fish stocks with potential long-term consequences for our livelihoods, ecosystems, and tourism. Namibia and the rest of SADC region are going through an El Niño phenomena which has adversely impacted our food security. In this regard, Namibia has to declare a state of emergency to address the severe effect of drought. As we approach the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration, we are presented with a renewed opportunity to strengthen gender equality. Namibia remains among the top 9 countries globally that have close to 80% of gender gap. In the past 12 months, we have achieved perfect parity in the National Assembly, where 50% of representatives are women. Namibia is preparing for the 8th Presidential and National Assembly elections on 27 November 2024. Political parties, including the ruling party, which I represent, have nominated female candidates. We hope that the United Nations will have a female Secretary General in the near future. Namibia is working to develop a sustainable energy mix to support its ambitious industrialization agenda and to contribute to the world's efforts to combat climate change. We are establishing green industrialization ecosystem for decarbonizing industries that find it difficult to lower their greenhouse emissions. Investment in these key sectors is critical in Namibia. is critical, and Namibia is urging developed nations to scale up support for developing countries to facilitate gradual energy transition. Turning to international peace and security, there is an urgent need for this assembly to support the modalities to actualize the adversary opinion rendered by International Court of Justice regarding the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Prolonged occupation does not justify or make acceptance the hardship and injustice endured. This is particularly true for the people of Gaza, who continue to be brutally massacred. As a country that has endured genocide, Namibia believes that Israel, by intent and by action, is committing genocide. Namibia continues to call for a ceasefire and humanitarian assistance to flow unhindered into Gaza. On economic matter, economic hardship continue to affect the sister Republic of Cuba in stark contrast to the ideals of inclusivity and the goals of leaving no one behind. Namibia calls for the end of economic, financial, and commercial blockade against Cuba and calls for removal of Cuba from states that are accused of sponsoring terrorism. Namibia also reiterates its call for the immediate and unconditional lifting of illegal sanctions against our neighbor Zimbabwe, which hinders the country's capacity to achieve sustainable development goals. Further affronts to United Nations Charter, its purpose and principle is the continued disenfranchisement of the people of Western Sahara, who are denied the right to self-determination. The 79th session of the UN General Assembly must do more to change that situation. In conclusion, Namibia is a child of international solidarity midwifed by the United Nations, and therefore remains its firmest of proponents. The United Nations system can be strengthened if we hold hands and work together as bridge builders to illustrate, as illustrated by the Summit of the Future, by choosing the way of collaboration over enmity, peaceful dialogue over war and conflict, and de-escalation instead of escalating things, we can achieve our shared goal of more peaceful, just, and prosperous world. And I thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Namibia. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Mohamed Yunus Menfi, President of the Presidential Council of the State of Libya. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I would like to congratulate you on your election as President of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. I wish you and your team all the success. I would also like to express my thanks and appreciation to Mr. Dennis Francis for his excellent stewardship of the previous session. Thanks are also due to His Excellency the Secretary General Antonio Guterres for his continuous effort to promote international peace and security, as well as his good offices to achieve the noble objectives of the United Nations and his role in promoting human rights. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, Libya has suffered for over more than a decade from successive transitional periods tainted with unjustified conflicts and wars among brothers. They were fueled by foreign interference aimed at weakening the state, deepening divisions, and controlling its natural resources, as well as its political and social decision. This necessitates a strong stance today to regain control. Challenges are huge and complex before us. However, we're still trying to reach consensual solutions to unite our words and ranks and gather all parties around one table to find a national solution. However, this institutional division that is a result of the systematic obstruction by some political parties and the subsequent conflict over privileges and prerogatives led to the escalation of this institutional and political crises. It further complicated the political landscape. This started with building parallel bodies, leading to the freezing and cancelling of our commitment to certain political agreements and resolutions of the Security Council, and the use of the resources of the state as a tool for political pressure, and the last of which was also attacking the Libyan prosecution and adjudication. And it is our duty to shoulder our responsibility to ensure the safety of our country and its strength. The comprehensive political solution, including the financial, economic, and security paths, in addition to national interests, is the only way to ensure our stability so that we can hold elections and renew the legitimacy of all institutions, so that the Libyan people can ensure self-determination. We commend all national and international effort aimed at promoting dialogue among different Libyan parties. We firmly believe that the Libyan people have the right to decide their destiny and choose whom to govern it and run its affairs. And this will be achieved when we renew the legitimacy and regain the control that some parties are trying to prevent. Libyans are the most capable to decide on their destiny, and people can choose whom to represent it through the fair elections and referendum to overcome any political stalemate. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Reconciliation Project, under the sponsorship of the Presidential Council, is undergoing a slow process due to the recent developments witnessed in the country, especially that some political parties are trying to obstruct it by all means. We reiterate the need to accelerate this path, to build trust. In this vein, we commend the efforts of the African Union. We call for a Libyan dialogue to ensure a national pact and a comprehensive reconciliation conference. We stress the need for all stakeholders to participate constructively to reach a peaceful settlement based on a Libyan solution away from any foreign dictations or interferences. We cannot reach sustainable solutions without a serious and honest dialogue among Libyans, without any foreign interference. This would ensure the unity of our country, its social cohesion and sovereignty. This month coincides with the first anniversary of the destruction of parts of the city of Darna due to Hurricane Danielle. This was an unforgettable and painful event that left behind a lot of destruction and huge human and material losses. However, we also remember the effort of the Libyans who came together to draw a clear lesson on the ability of the Libyan people to overcome the obstacles and crises they face. That's when they decide to solve their problems domestically without any foreign interferences or dictations. We renew our support to the sincere effort for recovery as we pave the way for the reconstruction all over the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the genocide and ethnic cleansing committed by the Israeli occupation against the Palestinian and Lebanese peoples represent a heinous violation of international law. We uphold the principles of accountability, and we should not allow any impunity and ensure accountability. And therefore, Libya joined South Africa's case before the ICJ on the grave violations of the Israeli entity to all international rules and laws. And we must ensure accountability for the mass genocide and violations that the Palestinian people are subjected to. We stress the need to work on addressing the situation and eliminate the specter of a regional war in the region through addressing the situation in Gaza and putting an end to the heinous violations against Palestine. We stress the right of the Palestinian people in self-determination and establishing their independent statehood with Jerusalem as its capital. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, turning to the regional and international affairs, we stress the need for concerted effort to counter illegal migration and terrorism. This represents a huge challenge, not only to Libya, but to many other countries, especially the African countries, the countries in the region, and Libya, for we are a transit country that shoulder a huge burden in this vein. We believe that the solution to this matter necessitates concerted effort while taking into account all national legislations, humanitarian aspects, and the protection of migrants' rights. Turning to terrorism, Libya has gravely suffered from this scourge. We succeeded in defeating Daesh thanks to the sacrifice of our people and the effort of the military institution, as well as the support of the international community. We continue to work on promoting domestic security and protecting our borders through the cooperation with the international community. We endeavor to establish security centers to coordinate effort among different national security forces and the neighboring countries. Combating terrorism is not a mere military confrontation. It's a multifaceted phenomenon that requires greater concerted local and international effort and a comprehensive approach that addresses its different dimensions. And despite the efforts of the United Nations in this vein, we believe in need to develop national mechanisms to counter these challenges away from any negative interferences. Ladies and gentlemen, I stress that it's high time to close ranks and build bridges of unity. Let's make our solidarity the cornerstone of our homeland, this generous homeland and people who love life. I assure you that we would not enjoy our wealth, if the seeds of strife and discord continue to thrive among us, our unity is the path to our stability. It's the hope that would carry our children into a better future. I urge you to uphold our national unity and take off the interference that aims at undermining our endeavors. History bears witness to the greatness of this people, the Libyan people, who was a source of inspiration to nations and peoples for decades. They proved that despite all challenges experienced, they always raise up stronger and more resilient and adamant. Libyans will not forget those who stood by them in times of hardship. We will continue to work to build a bright future worthy of the aspirations and hopes of our people. We will spare no sacrifice for its sake. Thank you, and peace and blessings of God be upon you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Presidential Council of the State of Libya. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Luis Rodolfo Abinader Corona, President of the Dominican Republic. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Excelentísimo señor.
Your Excellency, Mr. Philemon Yang, President of the 79th session of the UN General Assembly, Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, heads of state and government, distinguished heads of delegation, ladies and gentlemen. I wish, on behalf of the Dominican people, to express my congratulations to Mr. Philemon Yang on his election as President of this Assembly. In turn, I would like to thank him for his work and thank the Secretary General for the successful organization of this 79th session, and in particular for the recently closed Summit of the Future. This ambitious effort stressed the need to bolster international financing to ensure that we can attain the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. It demonstrates the sincere determination to work for a present and future of peace, civic well-being, respect for human rights, and democratic values. I'd like to emphasize that in the Dominican Republic, we have made considerable headway in the SDGs in poverty reduction, food security, energy sustainability, public safety, and climate action, just to cite a few examples. By way of example, monetary poverty shrank from 25.8% in 2019 to 23% in 2023. This despite the pandemic and the effects of the war. And in the first half of this year, it fell to 18.9%, which is the lowest level in our history. Over the 4 years of our administration, we have more than doubled spending on social protection. Our agricultural policy has been key to guaranteeing food security and maintaining profitability for Dominican farmers. Despite being an island with limited amounts of arable land, we have managed to boost our food self-sufficiency from 88.5% in 2019 to 90.6% in 2023. Indeed, we've established self-sufficiency in this sector to a large extent. Turning to the generation, transmission and distribution of affordable and clean energy, we've made significant strides and important improvements in electric regulations. We are beginning to build 2,000 new megawatts in thermal generation, and we've signed contracts for 1,600 megawatts of renewable energy with 600 megawatts already in operation and 1,300 in construction. By the end of 2027, for the first time, we will have a surplus generation capacity of over 15%. This will guarantee greater stability, sustainability, and prices for our energy supply. Public safety has also seen a considerable improvement. In 2022, the murder rate in our country stood at 13.2 for every 100,000 inhabitants. In 2023, it fell to 11.5, and in 2024, so far, it stands at 9.9. This figure is below the average for Latin America and the Caribbean, which, according to UN data, is 17.2. We stand steadfast in our commitment to tackle the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Playing a fundamental role in establishing the fund for Loss and Damage Fund and achieving the target of 30 by 30 in protecting our marine areas. All of these crucial topics warrant our full attention. However, the resurgence of war and unchecked violence mean that we are forced to focus on this regrettable emergency. Since its adoption in 1945, the United Nations Charter has served us well. But after 7 decades, a series of challenges have built up which now threaten to spill over the existing institutional framework, as was stressed by the Secretary-General in his opening statement. There is a widespread consensus that we urgently need a new model of global governance, a model that fosters greater trust and effectiveness in the decisions that emanate from this crucial concert of nations. For the Dominican Republic, commitment to effective and renewed multilateralism is a priority. We believe this approach is needed to guarantee respect for international law and to protect nations from global threats that compromise their security and well-being. Without concerted, principles-based action, the foundations of the international community will continue to erode. Since its formation, the Dominican Republic has been a standard-bearer for peace and the peaceful settlement of conflicts. The loss of thousands of innocent lives of children and the aging is unacceptable. For this reason, we speak up to strongly demand effective protection for our civilian population in line with the norms of international humanitarian law. There is a solid theory that posits that democracies rarely go into war against others. Dominicans are convinced that the promotion of democracy is essential for the building of lasting peace. Democracy cannot be reduced to a system of mechanic procedures. Democracy has to be a living reality which positively transforms our citizens' lives. President, we stand at a crucial juncture for democracy in Latin America and the Caribbean. Over the last few decades, we have borne witness to considerable deterioration in the quality of and support for democratic systems. In line with according to the Latino Barometer poll, support for democracy has fallen significantly from between 2010 and 2023, and at the same time authoritarianism increased. Many factors have impacted this decline, including the effects of frequent economic global crises, which have become cyclical since the end of the 1990s. Another factor is also that citizens are not seeing the tangible benefits of democracy and are very concerned by personalism and corruption, which undermine trust in democratic institutions. In light of this, a clear propensity to remain in power stands out, which in the case of Latin America has taken the form of indefinite re-election, which over the last 30 years has eroded democracy. One example of this is the crisis in Venezuela, which combines a concentration of power, persecution of the opposition, and censure of the media. Without due transparency of the electoral process and without necessary documentation, the crisis will further worsen. We continue to insist on the publication of all electoral records and their verification by impartial institutions in respect for the results of the popular will in Venezuela. Without the publication of these documents, a legitimate winner will not be able to be declared. Transfers of power are essential to guaranteeing responsible and genuinely participatory politics. Democracy is based on a founding principle. The loser has to accept their defeat and exercise true, faithful, constructive opposition. Another democratic principle establishes that the winner must not bully nor crush their adversary. Democracy cannot be exercised solely by and for the winners. The majority has to be treated with respect, and the minority has to be included, including equal rights and ensuring that they are treated with equity and justice. On the 19th of May, the Dominican people re-elected me at the first round for a second and final presidential mandate, which led to a qualified majority in both chambers of the Congress. I'm looking ahead to strengthening Dominican democracy, and to this end I presented a constitutional reform to the Dominican Congress, which will comprehensively limit presidential re-elections to 2 consecutive terms and no more. This reform aims to leave a legacy of greater political and social stability to future generations, and aims to establish a general principle that is clear and robust. That power is always transitory and must be there to serve the people. Mr. President, every democracy needs to make a commitment to defending human rights. It is fundamental to protecting dignity and the freedom of every individual, and to provide legitimacy to political power. The Dominican government is profoundly committed to protecting human rights at a national and international level. This commitment is an integral part of our foreign policy. This establishes the promotion and defense of human rights as one of its main pillars. Here there can be no horse trading nor factions, just principles. For this reason, the crisis in Haiti warrants particular attention. For more than 3 years now, the instability in our neighboring country has put significant pressure on our own security. We have firmly been asking for the involvement of the international community to show its sustained leadership in stabilizing Haiti. This is a strategic need for security in my country and across the whole region. The Dominican state has shouldered a high responsibility in the Haitian crisis, far more than should be expected of it, by providing essential services to a large amount of the population from our neighboring country. In 2023, medical appointments to Haitian immigrants represented 9.9% of the total medical appointments provided in our national health system. In addition, there are currently around 200,000 foreign minors in our Dominican public education system, of which it is thought that 147,000 are Haitian in origin. These figures reflect the supportive commitment shown by the Dominican Republic, but we can't do it alone. After a long struggle for the adoption of various resolutions within the Security Council, we finally began to see a path towards stability with the establishment of the Transitional Presidential Council and the arrival of the Multinational Security Support Mission in Haiti. We take this opportunity to express our thanks to Kenya and to President Ruto, which has provided the majority of the personnel supporting the Haitian National Police. We further thank the United States, which has shouldered most of the financial and logistics burden. Likewise, we thank Jamaica, Bahamas, and El Salvador that have already sent their contributions. Further, we thank CARICOM for its efforts towards dialogue and agreement and consultation in Haiti. The Dominican Republic has made its own contribution by providing emergency health services to the Multinational Security Support Mission. To date, only 400 of the MSS troops have been deployed out of a minimum of 1,000 that are needed to ensure that the force can be effective. We need this to be established so that the free, fair and transparent elections can be held. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached this point with great sacrifices, but practically 1 year from the holding of elections in Haiti, the conditions are still not in place for us to do so. We cannot allow the efforts that have been made to date to fail. If that were to happen, Haiti's collapse would be imminent, and the consequences of that would affect the entire region. This mission is an exceptional source of hope for the establishment of normality in Haiti. A failure could lead to us needing to take drastic measures to protect our national security. It's unacceptable that at this stage of the game, some of the countries that have had an impact on the Haitian situation or that have committed to resolving it have not fully kept their promises. While my country's national security is implicated, I will not let up in my demands for stability in Haiti. President, the Dominican Republic and the government that I preside will continue cooperating with the international community in a supportive, committed manner to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. The global landscape means that we need to act as a cohesive community with, like a true concert of nations, with one common goal and an aligned vision for the future. We'll be judged by history, not only in terms of the speeches that we give in these illustrious halls, but also, more importantly, for the actions that we undertake in practice. We cannot fail our peoples. We cannot fail humanity. We cannot fail the future. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Dominican Republic. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Klaus Werner Ioannis, President of Romania. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, we have all gathered here, the world leaders with the responsibility of a better global vision and the will to make it happen. There is no better and more representative framework than our 79 years old United Nations, anchored in the UN Charter and the international law. However insecure the world is today, the answer to our problems will always be more cooperation and more solidarity. Romania will always uphold the international world order with the United Nations at its core. If we want to find the solutions, we need to have a more responsible look at our world, to understand its challenges. Let us remember what brought us here together in the first place: peace as a state of spirit, as a purpose, as a tool. Regrettably, we see around the globe that insecurity, violence, conflicts, and even war have taken a firm grip on our world. Our main challenge is finding the much-needed solutions to restore and safeguard peace. Otherwise, the international order and the international law are ours to lose. When diplomacy is the most difficult tool to use, it is precisely then when we need to use it most. Look at the dire global consequences of the Russian war against Ukraine. It has unleashed the greatest security crisis in Europe in recent history, in breach of the international law and with implications going well beyond Europe. In this context, Romania has extended a strong multidimensional support for Ukraine and its people, and we are committed to maintain it for as long as it is needed. At the same time, Romania will continue its unwavering support to consolidate the resilience of the Republic of Moldova, the second most affected country by this war. Our security is not regional, it is global. This brutal war has already harmed nations and people across the world. Food security stands proof. My country has a crucial role in facilitating the grain exports from Ukraine through our ports on the Danube and at the Black Sea. A long-term conflict is unacceptable, and we must stay the course. Ukraine needs the resolute support of all UN member states determined to uphold the international law and the United Nations Charter. Romania fully supports the peace initiative of President Zelensky. It is the only approach to ensure a just and lasting peace in full agreement with the UN Charter and the international law. Ladies and gentlemen, protecting all civilians must remain our common objective. Almost a year ago, the heinous attack committed by Hamas against Israeli civilians has shocked the world. Against the spiral of violence that followed, our actions based on Security Council resolutions should prevail. The end of hostilities, a safe release of all hostages, and facilitation of the safe shipment of the humanitarian aid for the civilians in Gaza are imperatives no one can deny. Furthermore, we support all efforts to resume the political process based on the two-state solution, coexisting in peace and security within safe and recognized borders. More broadly, around the world, there are alarming calls to stop blatant violations of human rights under many forms and rooted in different causes. There is a sense of urgency that remains unanswered. Conflict prevention and peacekeeping are essential tools in this regard. At the same time, we must support the cooperation with regional organizations in view of their role in preventing, keeping, and enforcing peace. Distinguished audience, the impact of climate change is a growing threat to our security, and its consequences are already obvious. As these negative events increase, they impact demography, economies, energy, connectivity, and geopolitics. It is vital to further enhance international cooperation and ensure the much-needed civil protection mechanisms. Romania actively participates at the international level in the exercises, projects, and actions to provide emergency response, especially to limit the impact of wildfires. The UN system is essential to mainstream our efforts and to create synergies. We need to accelerate our work to keep the 1.5 degrees target alive. And since climate change is a threat multiplier, Romania supports an integrated approach to the climate and security nexus within the United Nations system. Green transition also includes energy transition, while ensuring energy security as an important development marker. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an era when we could fully enjoy the opportunities offered by information, innovation, and connections. Nevertheless, instead of harnessing their potential to our common benefit, we see increased distrust and hatred. We see polarization and rise of extremism instead of coexistence and tolerance. Technology misuses, disinformation, and other hybrid tools are at the center of the problem with the aim of undermining our security. In such times, it has become way easier to destroy than to build. But it is now that we need to seek strength in global institutions, principles, and values, all of those which serve to safeguard human dignity. And human dignity cannot be secured without human rights. They are never optional and continue to stand as one of the fundamental pillars of the United Nations system. In this regard, international legal instruments have a crucial role. For example, in digital transition, we see that technology is a global amplifier of trends. It is up to us to decide whether it will contribute to a more effective and accessible public services. We also have to recognize the essential role of civil society, the human rights defenders, and the involvement of youth in advancing human rights. We are also following the situation of gender equality and the fight against gender violence. Romania is a firm supporter of gender equality, which we promote as member of the Human Rights Council and most recently of the Commission on the Status of Women. Distinguished audience, there is no viable alternative to the United Nations and the principles upon which the organization was built, which remain more valid than ever. Our focus is to continue the United Nations reform so that it will be fit to address current challenges and the ones looming, a more effective and more efficient United Nations, a more representative United Nations where trust can be fostered. Romania advocates for an extended Security Council where transparency and accountability are the norm, not the exception. A UN more accessible to the public and more meaningful, where youth can have a say on matters affecting them, where the voices of the civil society and other stakeholders are heard. This is why a pact for the future was so urgently required to give fresh shape and purpose to our vision for the next generations. Finally, the United Nations has a continuous aspiration for a better world, from those who dreamed of peace and tolerance to those who will never stop fighting for it. A world where sovereignty, territorial integrity, international law, and human rights are respected, where each country can choose its own path with dignity and free from aggression, where every citizen is safe and free. This is our credo, and this is our call for action. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of Romania. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Chilombo, President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée.
President of the United Nations General Assembly, it is an immense honour for me to speak to you today for the first time since the Congolese people vested once again their trust in me, electing me for a second term as President of our nation. Having had the opportunity to speak to you before in the past, I'm particularly moved to be able to do it again at this significant moment for our country. I wish to congratulate Mr. Philemon Yang upon his election as President of this 79th session, and at the same time I wish to pay tribute to your predecessors for their constant commitment at the service of this institution. The theme of this session, leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development and human dignity for present and future generations, is a theme that particularly resonates with our aspirations in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Mr. President, United Nations Secretary General, heads of state and government, heads of delegation, multilateralism and the respect for a global rules-based system have been the essential pillars that have supported peace, security, health and prosperity the world over the last 80 years. The United Nations embody these fundamental values and remains an essential actor when it comes to the major challenges that humanity must overcome, whether it comes to guaranteeing security or addressing climate change or fighting against poverty. This reality requires strengthened multilateral cooperation. However, the noble ideals of those that drafted the United Nations Charter, that is, for it to serve as an instrument by which all countries govern their conduct, seems to be ebbing away, and the basis of collective security that it established is shaking. We have a responsibility to pool our efforts and to reaffirm our commitment to multilateralism, which is the key for truly transformational solutions in response to the challenges that we see across our world. As Dag Hammarskjöld, former United Nations Secretary General, whose sacrifice for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which recalls how grave our mission is, so eloquently said, and I quote, "The goal of the UN is not to take us to heaven, but rather to prevent us from going to hell." At this critical juncture for multilateralism is of the utmost importance. It allows us to respond to common threats, to protect our planet, and to strengthen civil society and human rights. Indeed, we cannot ignore the alarming rise in sabre rattling and the indecent resumption of practices of armed aggression and looting of natural resources which affect all continents. The Russia-Ukraine conflict that is ongoing and continues to affect the region is simply yet another manifestation among many others that threaten peace in the world. Yemen, Sudan, Syria, and the terrible tragedy unfolding on the Gaza Strip are part of the list of crises multilateralism needs to address. It is essential to act together to progress towards peace, sustainable development, and human dignity, thereby ensuring a better future for future generations. Let us not leave anybody by the wayside. This is the clear and relevant message that's inspired the theme selected to guide the work of this 79th session of this august assembly. Mr. President, the Pact for the Future and its annexes, that is the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration on Future Generations that we adopted during the recent Summit of the Future, highlight the importance of active collaboration to achieve a common vision of a peaceful and prosperous future. These documents represent an essential commitment to put an end to conflicts, to tackle extreme poverty and hunger, and to address challenges such as displacement of populations, illegal immigration, food insecurity, pandemics, and the risks associated with new technology. At the same time, the Global Digital Compact is an essential pillar, part of our quest for a prosperous future, and is at the heart of the fourth industrial revolution, where digital technologies have become essential. This digital transition is an unprecedented opportunity to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, in particular for the least developed countries. It seeks to reduce the digital gap and to onboard unconnected populations with digital services with a high social impact. However, in order to address this major challenge inherent to the digital revolution, global reforms are required, involving a reassessment of the international financial architecture and involving adequate financing. For this reason, the Democratic Republic of Congo aspires to attract investment to develop connectivity in Africa and calls for cooperation from multilateral partners and telecommunications operators, with knowledge transfer being key. Indeed, support for the grid development process in our country is a promising solution to link the south and north of Africa, and also to link the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic. This includes the establishment of viable partnerships with the Grant Inga hydroelectric project that seeks to respond to the growing energy demand of our country, which has been increased by the proliferation of connected devices. Furthermore, it's essential to strengthen traceability of strategic minerals, which are essential, and also technological equipment in order to ensure a responsible and sustainable exploitation of our resources. Furthermore, full participation and commitment from youth, both boys and girls, are essential to build a sustainable and inclusive society. This principle is the foundation of the Declaration on Future Generations and underscores our responsibility vis-à-vis future generations and how important it is to make decisions that enable them to flourish. For Africa, youth is a major asset for Africa's future prosperity. Investing in education, in particular in STEM subjects, that's science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and creating conducive environments for innovation are crucial. It is essential to deal with the disconnect between a fast-growing young population and the job market by providing the skills that they require to join the job market. Mr. President, the situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo is particularly concerning. The resurgence of the M23 terrorist group, supported by Rwanda, has caused an unprecedented humanitarian crisis with close to 7 million internally displaced persons. This aggression is a major violation of our national sovereignty. We call upon the international community to firmly condemn these actions and to impose targeted sanctions against Rwanda for its destabilising and damaging role. We demand an immediate and unconditional withdrawal of Rwandan troops from our territory. While recent diplomatic initiatives such as the Luanda talks may be encouraging, they should certainly not overshadow how urgent it is to engage in this essential action. The Democratic Republic of Congo is actively committed to entrenching lasting peace in the east of the country and to promote economic development and the well-being of the so long-suffering communities experiencing this armed conflict. Nevertheless, we are not closing any door to any opportunity that would bring peace while maintaining our sovereignty and our territorial integrity. In this regard, we are resolutely committed to implementing the roadmap adopted as part of the Luanda process, and I fully support that promotes high-level dialogue seeking to re-establish trust between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda while minimising the risk of the current security crisis descending into a regional conflict. Furthermore, my country remains open to any other initiative by our partners that would contribute to achieving this noble goal of peace. The Democratic Republic of Congo reaffirms our firm will to ensure lasting peace. Under my leadership, we are steadfast in our commitment to pursue the implementation of the Programme for Disarmament, Demobilisation and Community Recovery and Stabilisation, the PDDRCS, which is a key part of our national strategy to disarm, demobilise and reintegrate combatants by providing them viable economic opportunities that are also sustainable, while at the same time stabilising the regions affected by conflict. By ensuring a post-MONUSCO transition, we are also prioritising the repatriation of foreign combatants. The PDDRCS is a crucial tool for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I invite our partners and our friends to support it. Furthermore, thousands of victims of the genocide for economic gain in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in short, the Genocost, continue to suffer from the devastating consequences of a past marked by violence and impunity. Recognising and addressing the effects of this tragedy is crucial to enable the recovery and reconstruction of the affected communities. Beyond immediate humanitarian aid, a long-term approach focused on justice, reconciliation and sustainable development is essential to allow the victims to recover and to return to a decent life. Therefore, the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo decided to make the 2nd of August National Day, the Genocost Day, which is dedicated to the victims of the odious crimes perpetrated by rebels supported by multinational corporations and states in the region. This is a national day of coming together, and it allows us to confront our painful past so that we can move forward. It's essential to strengthen the historic conscience of our country and to affirm the determination of our nation to prevent such barbarous acts from repeating. President, terrorism is a serious threat to international peace and security, and it affects all the regions of the world. Having raged in Asia, in Western Europe and in North America, this scourge now seems to be entrenching itself in Africa. As a member of the Global Coalition Against the Islamic State, the DRC urges the United Nations to ramp up its efforts to implement the recommendations of this organisation, in particular when it comes to the Akaba process. Terrorism, which is raging in the east of our country, is closely linked to the looting and illegal exploitation of our natural resources. These criminal activities are nourishing insecurity and financing armed groups, exacerbating conflicts in the Great Lakes region. It is therefore essential for the United Nations to envisage severe sanctions against those responsible for these economic crimes in order to break this vicious circle and to foster peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for future generations.
President, according to the most recent voluntary national review report for the SDGs, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has made significant progress towards several of the SDG targets, thanks to major reforms and interventions. Since 2019, the government has had in place ambitious reforms to ensure free basic education, which has allowed more than 4 million children to attend school. Moreover, several measures have been taken to strengthen social protection, to introduce universal health coverage, and to promote gender equality, as well as fostering and supporting the development of infrastructure and rapid industrialization via, inter alia, the creation of special economic zones. Despite this progress, the Global Report on the Sustainable Development Goals underscores that at the current tempo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo will not be able to achieve the SDGs by 2030 due to persisting inequality and vulnerability, which are exacerbated by armed conflict. When faced with this challenge, a roadmap has been developed. This covers all the specific actions, interventions and reforms needed, the aim being to accelerate progress and tackle the issues set forth in the 2030 Agenda, with some measures underway already to make sure that the DRC will be in line with these SDGs by 2030. For this to work, the Democratic Republic of the Congo needs an annual investment of around $32 billion. It is therefore indispensable to strengthen partnerships for sustainable investment and to promote peace in order to support stable socio-economic development. To add to the list of global responses to climate challenges and the promotion of renewable energy, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, having already reaffirmed its commitment to ambitious climate action, wishes to underscore the crucial importance of financial and technical support, increased support, so its efforts can also therefore increase to achieve the goals set out in the Paris Agreement. Rich as we are in biodiversity and natural resources, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has taken on the role as a key player in the fight against climate change. Initiatives that are already underway to reduce greenhouse gas emissions cover 4 strategic sectors. These are agriculture, forestry, energy, and waste management. Structural reforms are also in place at the moment to reverse deforestation and to improve access to clean energy. This is the proof of the determination of our government to preserve natural resources and to support a green transition. Now, in terms of showcasing our tropical forests, Bali in November 2022 saw a watershed moment. This was the adoption of the Joint Declaration on Cooperation on Tropical Forests and Climate Action. This declaration was signed by Brazil, Indonesia, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This significant step forward demonstrates the collective political will that there is to use forests as a tool for sustainable development. The Trilateral Cooperation Alliance for Tropical Forests, which was created in Bali, will provide a framework to address biodiversity-related challenges and will also propose solutions for carbon credit markets, all the while ensuring full respect for the rights of indigenous peoples. Moreover, within the framework of environmental and global warming-related issues, it is also important to underscore the holding of the second summit of the biggest tropical forest basins in the world. These are the Amazon, the Congo, and the Borneo Mekong. This was held from the 26th to the 28th of October 2023 in Brazzaville in the Republic of the Congo. This African initiative, which was spearheaded by President Denis Sassou Nguesso, aims to implement, as part of the UN Decade for the Restoration of Ecosystems, create the first global coalition dedicated to the restoration of 350 million hectares of land and water ecosystems. These forests are a crucial bulwark against climate change. When faced with these problems that have been clearly identified and we have solutions within reach, it is therefore crucial to act in a concrete fashion. The Amazonian, Congolese and Borneo Mekong basins are home to more than 80% of the tropical forests and play a crucial role in the fight against climate change. And they also provide vital ecosystem services. It is therefore imperative that the improvement of social-economic conditions paid by local communities, they who play a key role in forest conservation, that their interests be given top billing in global governance. For its part, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has created judicial instruments and institutional tools that seek to strengthen its position on the global carbon markets, while we still remain open to partnerships in line with the Paris Agreement and our domestic laws. The growing awareness of the challenges linked to climate instability and the depletion of natural resources, which are often the origin of armed conflicts, this underscores the need to act on these issues. It is therefore crucial to recognise the link between climate change, environmental degradation and security in order to foster proactive action to mitigate these risks through sustainable practices. In this connection, we would call on the Security Council to create international mechanisms that include questions of climate security in their discussions. President, faced with a major energy challenge, the world indeed is facing a major energy challenge. Systems that are based on fossil fuels are responsible for significant greenhouse gas emissions, and thus they exacerbate climate change. Without resolute efforts to promote renewable energy, we risk facing even more grave crises. For example, extreme weather, conflicts linked to natural resources, and we are seeing some of this already. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has abundant resources, including essential ores and minerals such as cobalt, lithium, nickel, and graphite, to name but a few. These could facilitate a sustainable energy transition. We would appeal for international cooperation to develop the necessary technology and infrastructure for this. Our vision is to transform the exploitation of our resources into a tool for inclusive and sustainable development, all the while improving education, health, and infrastructure. Social inclusion is at the heart of our strategy, as it guarantees the equitable distribution of the benefits of progress. As we invest in the fight against climate change and as we contribute to the SDGs, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is ready to play a key role in the transformation of global energy systems. Together, we can build a future where energy is clean, sustainable, and accessible for all. President, I would also like to touch on the crucial question of gender equality. Although equal participation of men and women in political life is something that is internationally recognized, in practice there is still a chasm between legal equality and the reality in how power is held. Women's concerns deserve to be integrated in the major decisions that affect our society. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, we are determined to change mentalities, to overcome the social barriers that are hampering women from prospering. It is also crucial to involve men in this process so we can transform social trends and we can showcase their role in women's success. On a national level, the Congolese constitution enshrines parity. Thus, the government has also created a strategy to fight gender-based violence, a strategy that is focused on prevention, protection, and also reparation for victims. This strategy is reflected in our National Fund for Reparation of Victims of Conflict-Related Sexual Violence and Crimes Against Peace and Security, which goes by FONAREV. The current legislation seeks to guarantee this level of protection. Here I wish to underscore significant progress that's been made in terms of women's participation in decision-making, with the appointment for the first time in our history of a woman as Prime Minister and Head of Government. We're also seeing increased presence of women in governmental bodies, as well as in the judicial system and the parliament, as illustrated by the appointment of women as the first President of the Council of State and the head of the Central Bank of the Congo. President of the United Nations General Assembly, United Nations Secretary General, heads of state and government, heads of delegation, ladies and gentlemen. As we leverage this momentum, it is crucial that the international community, under the aegis of the United Nations, continue to support the processes underway and reinvent themselves when faced with the challenges of the current world. To retain the trust of the international community, the United Nations must prove how it is able to adapt to contemporary changes and overcome these in an effective and responsible way. It is crucial to breathe new life into multilateralism through targeted reforms of the United Nations Charter on key issues such as the Security Council, the veto, Chapter 7, and the use of force. Nevertheless, that won't be enough. Coordination and cooperation between the different institutions and agencies of the United Nations must also be improved. Numerous global issues are often dealt with redundantly in different fora, sometimes taking contradictory angles, while other problems remain completely sidelined. And each international bureaucracy seeks to justify its own existence. In this connection, while we commend the support of the United States, I would reiterate with strength on behalf of all African countries the request for 2 permanent seats at the Security Council for African countries. As the main decision-making body within the United Nations, this organ must include African representatives amongst its permanent members, with all of the associated prerogatives, particularly the veto. This is to guarantee fair geographic representation. This is a question of justice. Justice for a continent whose role in international affairs is ever growing. We, Africans, are determined to see this through. Finally, I wish to conclude by recalling that following more than 3 decades of absence from the Security Council, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is once again submitting its candidacy, supported by the African Union and by the Southern African Development Community, SADC, for the post of an elected member for the 2026-2027 period. This will be during the elections which will be held in New York in June 2025. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has already filled this function between 1982 and 1983, and 1990 and 1991. And during these 2 periods, we worked to promote peace, security and stability in Africa and around the world. Once elected, the Democratic Republic of the Congo plans on playing a proactive role within the Security Council and participate in the revitalization of the UN Charter and contributing to, in a constructive way, to the debates and actions related to this. My country, therefore, requests the support of all member states as we come up to these elections. At a time when multilateralism is being so sorely tested, the Democratic Republic of the Congo reaffirms its tireless commitment to the international community. And it is ready to shoulder with honour and responsibility the mission to forge a future where peace and cooperation prevail over conflict and division. Nelson Mandela said, and I quote, "None of us acting alone can achieve success." End of quote. Thus, we are reaching out to each and every one of you, long-standing partners and new allies alike, to together write this new crucial chapter of our collective history. Together, let's make our world a place where every nation, big or small, can prosper in dignity and security. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo,